All right, I'm talking here, responding to a man named Accented Cinema. He's talking about Mulan. He really likes it. And of course, there's a lot of issues with Mulan because it's the fake empowerment we have to deal with all the time. Let's see what Accented Cinema has to say.
Was pretty much in the gutter back then. I was excited to see Mulan as a cartoon character. Spring of 1999, our elementary school trip brought us to the local cinema to see Mulan. I figured it's probably just a 1960 adaptation or something. To my surprise, a Disney logo appears on the big screen. Every kid in the theater gasped. We were ecstatic, and it was every bit as beautiful as I hoped. It's not a perfect film. It has some questionable racial depictions, although I guess the Huns aren't around anymore.
Now, right off the bat, this is what annoys me to no end. If it's something that you like specifically, then all of a sudden the racism is just pushed aside. And I have no problem if it was done all the time, Accented Cinema. But personally, from experience, if it's something I like and other people don't, all of a sudden the racism matters. But of course you like this, so the racism doesn't.
And I heard people say it's a watered down version of the story. Then again, Chinese people love to say that to everything. None of that matters because
Disney waters them all down because they have to make it child friendly.
Because for the first time, I feel represented in a cartoon. My culture, my favorite story on the big screen.
How does this represent you as a man? You do realize that this story demonizes you as a man. This story says Mulan was this brave person. She was kept down by the man. That's you.
And I'm just a dude. I can't imagine how powerful it must have felt to a young girl.
Hey, this doesn't matter to young girls that much. Young girls, they all love the Disney princesses. All the ones like Sleeping Beauty that you're about to show, that just laid there and was rescued.
Mulan is unlike any other Disney female lead at the time, arguably ever. She's not born royalty nor nobility and does not marry into one either. She's a warrior with a kill count of thousands.
Okay, now why is that good? You know the old saying, men cause wars. Men are awful, they cause wars. But now it's good once a woman's doing mass murder. Like Accented Cinema, I mean, why do you fall for all these blatant double standards?
For a traditionally highly patriarchal country, Mulan is an important icon who not only gives girls in China an important representation, but a sense of empowerment.
No, she doesn't represent girls. The average girl would never do anything like this, for one thing. So she doesn't represent them. And there's no patriarchy, Accented Cinema, anywhere in the world throughout history. That's why Mulan had to fight to get into the army, because she wasn't forced, she wasn't conscripted. In case you haven't noticed, all the guys are conscripted. They don't want to go, that's what conscription means. And so the men are forced to give their lives, and when they die, they get nothing. And so the girls stay behind. Patriarchy never existed. Men throw themselves away from women. It's a matriarchy is the standard.
When Mulan defeats Shan Yu atop the palace, the entire theater of children cheered.
Of course, because the bad guy got his. That's what we're there for.
Clearly, the film did something special. Fast forward 20 years later, a new live-action Disney Mulan came out, and it came at the perfect time. Feminism is once again a hot topic in China. News of domestic.
Oh, of course it's a hot topic. Why is it now a hot topic? Because China's it's moving up in the world. You see it, how come Accented Cinema, everywhere you look at rising feminism, it's always in a country that's doing well, that's becoming safe and wealthy. If it was so important, how come these women didn't break out, in the Middle Ages and say, I'll become the blacksmith and work myself. And when I grow old, I'll bum on the street because I have no kids to look after me.
Violence and gender discrimination came into focus more and more. Preference for sons over
Men have been discriminated since the dawn of time. So it's not going to end. It's only going to get worse with feminism now.
daughters is still a big issue. Those who are
You know why? Because it's still a tradition for the son to look after his parents. So if you're a woman and you have children, you don't want a daughter who's going to skip off to some other family. You want a son who will look after you. So this son preference is woman generated. Is all this empowerment and stuff doesn't matter once it's an individual woman has to sacrifice. When an individual woman has to sacrifice, all of a sudden, the hell with other women, the hell with female empowerment. This is about me. And that's why the boys are still being preferred.
empowered by Mulan during the youth are currently fighting for the equality. It is the perfect time for a new generation.
They are fighting for supremacy. They will always look after. Now that things are safe and easy, they want everything the guys have, sacrificed for with no sacrifice.
On Mulan to inspire people. And you f***ed it up. In 1998, Mulan succeeds. The story of Mulan is set in a non-specific era of ancient China, a time when the greatest honor a woman can bring is to get married and bear children.
Yeah, because she wasn't going to go out in war and get her head chopped off. She wasn't going out to become a hermit and bring back the gold. Because that's not what women want. That's what the men are for. They prefer it this way, accepted cinema. That's why it's this way.
Which Mulan is terrible at. Counter the offensive, China conscripts one son from each family.
Yeah, conscription, right? In other words, they're forcing them to go to war. These guys, extended cinema, do they want to go to war? Don't they have endless work to do in this era? So when they leave their village, all of a sudden they're saying, gee, who's in the rice paddies? Who's in the rice fields? Who's going to do this and that or the other thing? And when these guys get conscripted, cinema, when they come back, will they find their village intact? Because they're moved around. So their instincts is to say, no, the hell with the emperor. I want to stay and protect my village, right? But they can come home and find their village razed to the ground. So that's what conscription means. It means these guys get nothing.
Far family!
No. Having no sons in the house, Mulan's father is the only one who can go. Too wrapped up in the social order, Mulan's father refuses to consider
social order. This is the emperor telling him what to do. He's got to do it. It's not the social order. He has no choice. Modern day living, modern day countries have conscription for men. Cinema. So it's not just his society. It's not just China. Oh my God, man. You don't know what's going on in the world. And you see, this is an old man, and they're going to conscript him. If he had his way, he'd stay home. He'd say, look, I fought in the war before, which he did. So I did my time. Go look for someone else. If he should have just written and said, if Mulan wanted to protect him, she would have just written and said there was no sons here. And that's it.
Otherwise.
Right. But if you... I know my place. It is time you learned yours.
And with his age, he will surely die on the battlefield.
But he's right, though. He's being very pragmatic and practical. He does have a place. This isn't a tradition. This goes beyond tradition now. He's being given orders from the top. He's going to do it because there's force involved. And none of these women, Mulan is not forced to go. She gets to stay.
Mulan decides to dress up as a man and join the army. Mulan's journey empowers women in two ways. First, by showing her capability in holding her own against men.
If that was the case, why didn't he conscript a bunch of women? Now, this is the problem. Like, actually, to cut to the chase, if you go to how the new one fails, it actually doesn't fail, cinema. It doesn't fail because the new one here, I mean, she's superhuman, so they don't have to explain why all the other women aren't being conscripted. They don't have to explain why women have forever just hung around and enjoyed an easy life by comparison to the men. They say, oh, she's superhuman, no other women can keep up with her. That's why she can join. Right? But in this one, you have to explain, you would have to believe that men were always just holding women down. Right? That's you, by the way. You're a guy, you've been holding women down. That's what it have to be the explanation. Otherwise.
Mulan starts off as a total amateur, but so does everyone else. We see this ragtag group of soldiers train, and in any and all relevant aspect, Mulan can keep up with them. As the other soldiers grow, so does she. Here, the film made
and here's another thing about reality. The militaries of the world, they have tried to get women to join. They never conscript them, they never force them, but they want them to join. When they want them to join, they lower their standard cinema so that the women can try and keep up. So this is a great fantasy, but it's a fantasy.
Statement that women in any practical situation can be just as capable as any other man.
No. I mean, if that was the case, you would see it in history. You don't. Mulan isn't a real person. Get it? She's a fantasy figure.
Mulan learns to be masculine.
And this represents strength.
She is capable of harnessing strength and power, traits that traditionally are valued by men. But
yeah, because if men doesn't have it, they're discarded. Mulan doesn't need it. She could be a weakling and society would be fine with that.
What's more interesting is the second way the film empowers women, by empowering femininity.
So fighting is feminine now? I thought it was masculine all this time.
Now, this sounds strange because at first glance, Mulan isn't very feminine. She is a tomboy and a failed bride.
I disagree. I find her very feminine. She's petite and childlike face as usual, very pretty, long hair. She's as feminine as they get.
A failed bride.
You may look like a bride, but you will never bring your family honor.
But she's also not good at masculinity, being extremely awkward at pretending to be a man. That's because those are extreme versions of gender expression. Femininity means submission, masculinity means aggression.
You're wrong. Men submit all the time. These guys submitted to conscription. Get it? Men submit all the time. Right now, a woman could put up a video on YouTube saying men are all garbage and they will never be taken down.
In a sense, Mulan's journey is to embrace her own gender expression. She succeeds in doing traditionally masculine tasks by refusing to engage in hypermasculinity, rejecting the value of brute strength. Instead, she's able to overcome her challenge by using clever solutions.
Yeah, how are clever solutions not men? Men have invented almost everything. That is a hallmark of masculinity. What happens? There's a problem, there's a couple, the woman looks to the man and says, don't do something. And then he's got to figure it out. Don't try to put this on the feminine.
On multiple occasions. And her friends learn from her too. They start off as hyper-angry, hyper-masculine men, but by the end are willing to be in drag.
Yeah, in other words, they were emasculated. These guys are not hyper-masculine. They're just masculine. And so what do these guys get out of all this? Cinema? What do these guys get out of this? So humiliating themselves. Let me show you something. Do you remember this scene? A girl worth fighting for? So these guys, they're conscripted, they're far away from home, they're lonely, they're homesick, they're by themselves, they're drudgery, they're dealing with drudgery, and they're dealing with fear and danger. And what are they getting out of it? Well, this song, they just sang, I'm looking for a girl who's worth fighting for. That's all these guys can hope for. And why are they singing that? I mean, aren't there any girls in their villages? Cinema, are there not any girls in their villages? So why are they daydreaming about this? Why aren't they saying, hey, there's this hot girl back home that I can't wait to get together? Because they're ugly, deselected men. They're homely, and probably the girls are already put out to bedded to men with higher status. They probably don't own anything. They're probably just laborers. And this is what men get in the past, cinema. This is what men get. If they're low status, get nothing. They get conscripted and they get their heads chopped off. And if they survive it and they don't get their heads chopped off, well, they just go home and they become a simple laborer and they're lucky to get, some female validation. See, that's their dream. That's all they've got. Of course, they're envisioning a real beauty, but even if they did, they probably wouldn't get a real beauty either. But that's the dream of the common man. And you know something? It hasn't changed. There's all kinds of lonely guys on the internet that express themselves. There's the single man epidemic is only increasing. So what do these guys get out of this? Do you remember this scene where they're bathing and she's trying to hide the fact that she's a woman? And all the guys come in and she says, I don't want to see a naked man ever again. So men are gross too, cinema. That's you, being a man. She finds men gross. There's one good-looking guy slated for her that she doesn't bother getting together with. But the point is, it's even a jab at male sexuality, that men are just gross. And it just pushes the idea that, these guys are low-status guys, right? And so they're not deserving of anything, are they? You know what these guys get? They get to be good feminist allies. That would be the modern take on this. It'd be good feminist allies. And that's all men have to hope for. This is embarrassing. Look at how disgusting this is.
Learn to embrace each other. Girls can be manly, and that men being girly is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, really? How? So these guys dressed in drag, but then they do what men do and they fight in the end anyway. Are you saying that fighting is a girl's thing?
There is strength on both sides, and there is strength in not limiting one with either extreme.
Come on, dude. Cinema, come on. Where are all the other women if they're so special? No. The feminine side get to be above the masculine side. That's why the guys do all the danger and all the work. That's why Mulan is not an actual historical figure. She is not a part of actual history. She's a made-up fantasy.
it's important to realize the climax is her trying to save the emperor and not China. It has probably an unintentional moral that Mulan's power, and by extension a woman's power, is best used to uphold the patriarchy. The storytellers at Disney probably took notice too, and to avoid that connotation, the film cleverly suggests that Mulan doesn't save the emperor out of loyalty. She merely sees the emperor as a fellow human in need of help. But
God. This is not a patriarchy cinema. All these guys beneath this emperor are, disposable. That's why this woman's toadies were emasculated, and they got nothing in the end. This emperor, if he has an empress, where is she? She doesn't have to. Her life's not in danger like this guy. What's happened if this guy got murdered? You know what happens? A lot of these queens and empresses, they marry the conqueror, the guy who murders her husband. You see, because they are not going to suffer in the way that men do. It has always been a matriarchy. And so that's all I need to say about that. Sorry, but your analysis of Mulan is a failure. Thank you.